Uh, Hi, I'm Shalmai Rivera, and we're here at MIT to talk about our emerging trends of education.
Yeah, I'm Kylie Clapper, and I'm going to start us off. Basically, for our final presentation, we thought a lot about, sort of in the lens of Christensen, talking about how he recognized that there are things about Harvard that were bigger and better, but not always necessarily meant to be implemented uh, in other schools. And so, what we thought about was how do we how do we pick some emerging trends that we saw in the 9 through 12 level of education, and what do we think would be some really good ideas to make these trends not only tip but also stick. The ideas that I sort of looked at this week were, is Jemai and I, we did a little bit of both. I looked first at the Science Leadership Academy. We heard Chris Lehman talk about, he had some really great ideas. He started his conversation with high school stinks, which is totally a relatable topic, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
I felt that way, and I could see where he was coming from. But he's doing something about it, right? He is saying that, let's have a new measure of how students should be able to succeed. There's got to be more to life than a standardized test. The best part, right, was when he talks about the box and whisker plot and says, when do you ever need to know this?
Never.
So, he says, let's have these benchmarks for measuring student success. And further, he has different themes that sort of hit on, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and kind of thinking as they go through their classes, how does this relate to their themes? Grade 9 is systems. Grade 10 is change. Grade 11 is creation. How do the things that they're learning in their math class come back to those core ideas? And the second one I looked at was a nonprofit called Reinventing the Schools Coalition. And this idea is more about a self-paced model. It was the idea of saying, what is it? Is there a way that we can allow students to move at a pace that is going to push those students that want a little bit extra, and also provide a method for students who need a little extra help to get that? So those are sort of the two ones that I kind of looked at, and I'll hand it over to Shamai.
Yeah. So the two schools along with that, the first one that I looked closely into along with Kiley is the Met School, and one of the biggest things for the Met School is teaching towards the big picture. So not just teaching math and science and English and social studies and history, but teaching leadership and involvement in your community inside each of these classes. So in your math class, you might learn basic division, but you're also going to maybe present what you've learned to the rest of your class in a different way. So you're learning public speaking, or you might help another student in your class for science that isn't understanding, and so you're learning leadership by helping them learn what they weren't getting to begin with. And so that's one of the things that the Met School really focuses on, is making sure that they're modeling for the whole student, a holistic approach to their students. And then the other big thing that the Met School really focuses on is their different form of assessment. They don't give grades. They don't do testing in the same way as most public schools. They give written evaluations for every single student, and you work one-on-one with an advisor to get those evaluations. And that's definitely time-consuming, but it really works for the Met School with great statistics. They've shown that 98% of their students that have gone through the Met School have gone into college, which is incredible. It is a smaller school, but still 98% success rate is pretty huge.
Yeah, it's significant.
Yeah. And then the other system of schools that I looked into was the KIPP schools, which are mostly middle schools, but are pre-K all the way through 12th grade schools around the country. And that is definitely a hands-on model, high touch. Kiley and I talked a lot about how they go about being high touch, having parents involved in the education. Parents have to sign a contract when their kids get into the school saying that they're going to be involved, they're going to make sure that their kids are doing their homework, and not just doing their homework, but are they, what are they learning? Or, their parents are highly, highly involved in the education of their students, and more so than most schools, in that if, for example, my school, if I didn't do my homework, no one was calling me, my parents, to tell them I didn't do my homework. Not that I didn't do my homework, but at the KIPP school, someone would be. Parents they're involved, and they want to be, and they sign a contract saying they're going to be.
I like too how with the KIPP schools, there's also sort of an involvement that goes past high school, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's important. I think, you're giving a good anecdote just about like the financial aid and just the different forms and so forth that students need to fill out. I mean, I think it's pretty impressive that they're giving that commitment to see them through college and to make sure that, not, only part of the job is done when we get students to graduate from high school. That in itself is a success. But moving further, I think.
Yeah, the KIPP school focuses a lot on getting kids all the way through college. So it's KIPP to college. So the KTC program is what they call it. And if you start with the KIPP school in pre-K, they want to follow you all the way through the KIPP schools, and then they advise you all the way through college. They're, like Kiley said, they're helping with financial aid forms. They're making sure you're socializing. Your advisors stay with you through your 4 years, and they have great stories on their website about students that on their graduation day, they're reflecting on not only their 4 years of college, but all their years in the KIPP program that got them there. That support doesn't just end the day they graduated from high school. It's, it's all the way through college and then some. They have that support through life. They've made these bonds that are just so strong, and the connections are just incredible to be able to have that.
So the 4 models that we looked at, those were our ones that we thought were highly successful and worth duplicating elsewhere, that weren't necessarily sort of part of the general trend, or sort of the, what we would consider more of a mainstream model of instruction. So the ones that we, just talked about really focus on, having students in an environment where they're having different benchmarks for success. Almost all of the all of the, different educational models that we looked at explored different models of measuring a student's success, right? It's not all about a standardized test. They also looked at some, the self-paced model. How could that be successful, and how could that be worthwhile in implementing? And, I think with, what Shalmai talks about in the KIPP program, I mean, that high touch environment is really what makes them successful. So those were the 3 key pieces that we thought, based on a lot of the stuff that we've read and looked at and explored in this class, that were worth sort of making a push to make a little bit more mainstream.
Yeah, and we know that the change will be slow, and that it's going to take a lot to implement these kinds of changes across the country and across public schools. But we think that it's going to start in the public schools. It's going to start with the principals and the middle group, the teachers being willing and able to accept these new ideas as, they're working in these other small schools. And if they can work in these small schools, they can work at other schools. We can make it larger and bring it across the entire country. And if they're willing to implement those changes, then we can make a huge difference for students.
Definitely. And, just in sort of a closing thought, a lot of, an undercurrent that kind of runs through a lot of these ideas that we're talking about is the concept of making students more productive citizens. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not educating students to be workers. We don't want them to be, just popped into the workforce after high school, but rather we want them to be, productive citizens, because that's going to make for more productive communities, more productive, family members and volunteers. And I think overall, some of those, being able to implement those trends, we'll see a shift not only in our education, but also in our communities. So thanks, Shalmai.
Thank you, Kiley.
For all the good work.
Yes.
And thanks everyone for a great class.
Yeah, thank you.